Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/ProRevenge. In today's episode, give my hours away to a new hire? I'll leave you with a store to close yourself, misfiled paperwork, and get you fired. Pedo father gets short sentence, he never left the prison alive. A satisfying way to get revenge on an old white man telling me I'm anti-feminist. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Give my hours away to a new hire? I'll leave you with a store to close yourself, misfiled paperwork, and get you fired. I've been lurking on here for a while and finally wanted to post this. Formatting is going to be messy on mobile. This is a long one, stick around for the juice. This happened a couple months ago at an old employer. I worked at a supermarket in my state throughout high school, and while in college in the United States, making $9 to start and only $10.50 at the end. The store had one store manager, two assistant store managers, one manager and assistant manager per department, which there were 9 departments. For 5 years, I worked every position there because who knew what hiring was, right? Understaffing was a regular here, so if a department needed closing and I worked, I had to close it. From stocking to register to manager's duties, everything was game. My biggest acknowledgements were being a bookkeeper, out terms of the person who keeps track of all the money, monitor, glorified cashier, basically wrangle the regular cashiers and divvy up cash drawers to each register, service desk, cigarettes, lottery, customers bullshit, and store opener/closer. There were 5 people who knew bookkeeping, 2 other people besides me, and the 2 managers who ran the front end of the store. There were about 5 monitors who all needed to be trained on service desk as well. Every monitor and bookkeeper needed to know how to open the store and close it. For being a supermarket in a town with about 20,000 people, we were severely understaffed. I worked 12 to 16-hour shifts at least once a week because people would call off all the time. Keep all this in mind for later on. Backstory. I started working here at 16 in high school originally as a stock person. 25-hour work weeks, eventually moved up to 35-plus-hour work weeks. Moved up to register, then monitor, then service desk and finally bookkeeping when I turned 18, now 21. The hours were always good, never had a week drop below 35 hours at least. But it all changed because of some dickhead. At the start of COVID-19, I was working while in college, so all these guidelines had to be followed. Everyone needed their toilet paper and hand sanitizer to keep COVID away. No biggie. On top of the guidelines, we also had been hiring a copious amount of people. This store had a history of training new hires with other people who have been working for maybe a month or so. So as you could guess, training was a disaster. But since COVID-19 had the store busy all the time, we needed more people. I wanted to train people the right way because I got sick of doing other people's jobs. In March, we had gotten 4 new hires to train for my position. Now these new hires needed training on the service desk. Easy, let them run it while I watched and helped out the best I could. Easiest way to get people to learn. Most of them needed trained on here because there were 3 of us total, at the time, who could run it. After training everyone, 1 per shift at a time over 4 weeks, there were 7 people now ready to fuck up the world. But everyone who knew how to run the service desk needed training on monitor too. Guess who had to train everyone for another position? After another 4 weeks of bullshit, everyone got trained. Around this time was the end of May. This is where the juice begins. The juice. Starting in June, we had been starting to lay off the hours since COVID-19 started to slow down. Hours started to get cut from all the registered people, from about 20 to 30 hours a week to 10 hours maximum. We got overstaffed and people started quitting left and right. Not a big deal because those positions were easy to fill. But that's when MY hours started getting cut. At the time, the one new hire who started in March, who we'll call Helen, had been getting really good hours. I'm talking about MY hours. We had the same problem, college money, car money, the works and all. But then I got scheduled for 16 hours one week, and they got scheduled for over 35 hours. Not once since I was 18 did I get less than 35 hours. So I decided to confront the assistant manager who was in charge of scheduling. We'll call him Frank. Me, hey Frank, I noticed my hours got cut. What's happening? Frank, I know, everyone's hours are getting cut. I have to make room for everyone, you know? Me, I couldn't help but notice that Helen is getting quite the hours, so you made room for her and no one else. Frank, I was unaware of that. I'll get you some more hours next week. The reset of the week was kind of boring since I was a workaholic. No one called me to cover shifts or anything. The following week, I asked around to see who covered any shifts last week, and it turns out that all the new hires got called first. That kind of pissed me off, but hey, can't do anything about it now. Later that day, I checked my schedule and what do you know? The same 16-hour week. I was livid at this point. I should have been honored for my seniority there, not getting fucked over in hours. I went back to Frank and confronted him. Me, hey, what the hell is this? I thought you'd be finding me hours this week. I can't live off of this. Frank, well, it turns out that I couldn't find you hours. I tried calling Dash. Me, bullshit, you tried calling me, not a single person called me. Instead, all the new hires got called. What the hell, man? Frank, there's nothing I can do, you might have to just find another job. This pissed me off beyond belief. I was ready to pop. But this is when my bright idea came into play. For a couple days, I searched around for other supermarkets in my area offering jobs. After about a day of searching, I found a job paying double what I made now for the same qualifications. I gave them a ring and got an interview for the following week. The following day, I went into work for what I didn't know was my last shift, and told Frank what was happening. Me, hey Frank, I just wanted to let you know I took your advice. Frank, advice? Do you mean finding another job? Me, you're a fucking right, I hope you have fun. I will never forget the look on his face. Completely baffled. He didn't expect me to actually find another job so quickly. This is where my revenge began. Revenge. After I walked out of Dickhead Frank's office, I went around doing my usual work. During every shift, a metric fuckton of paperwork needed to be processed in the computer in order to close the store correctly and set up bookkeeping for the next day. Fun fact, that day in particular was Snap Day. For those who don't know what that is, it's the day that government-funded food stamps arrive on everyone's EBT card, monthly. That day I decided to say fuck paperwork and just don't do shit. I was quitting that day because my anger got the better of me. The store closes at about 12 a.m., and I walked out of that shithole as free as can be. The next day, I woke up to find some really obnoxious and angry texts from coworkers. I completely disregarded them, unknowingly that they said I worked that morning. I went down to the supermarket to grab some things for my house, and as soon as I walked in the door, every ex-coworker of mine looked at me as if I had just passed on the floor. One of them pulled me aside, let's call them George, and this happened. George, what the fuck, bro? I had to cover your shift this morning, and you have the balls to walk in here after that? Me, I don't work here anymore, fuck off. I continued to get my groceries and talked to one of my closer ex-coworkers there about what happened. As it turned out, the Frank had no idea that the previous day was my last, and that the entire front end of the store had gotten brutally fucked over. Since the store closed at 12 a.m. and no paperwork was filed, our corporate called the assistant manager, also in charge of making sure all departments are closed correctly, and asked where all the paperwork was. No idea that I had not filed it. Frank had to go into the store, over an hour away from him, to file all the paperwork himself. Not only that, tons of violations were given to him because since none of the paperwork got done by the person closing, no one had a record of anything done at the store from the previous day. On top of everything, the amount of paperwork needed done was practically doubled since the day was Snap. As soon as the store manager heard about this, she was livid. After about a month, I was working my new job and heard some information about Frank. Apparently he had to go into a meeting with our corporate bosses and the store manager. He had gotten fired from his position due to all of this, and had not been able to get a letter of recommendation from that employer also. Sucks to suck, huh? Pedo father gets short sentence, he never left the prison alive. This story has sat with me for a few years now, and I feel like I am ready to share it. My father sexually abused me and my siblings growing up. I was the youngest of 3 siblings, and was the one that spoke out, eventually getting him arrested. He only got charged with 1 count against my sister. Me and my brother have spoken about what happened a few times and both feel we never got justice for what he did. He got 4 years in federal prison Oswell as charges for having drugs and some illegal weapons, an assault rifle and pistol that weren't registered in Canada BTW. For a time in my teenage years, I ended up living in a bad neighborhood, living with my gang member friends and selling drugs to pay for myself to eat. Don't judge me for that, I only sold weed which can't kill anyone, so I feel fine about it. One day a higher up in the gang my friends were in came by our apartment because I was selling a lot of weed and he was beginning to not like it. He gave me a booty and I respected him since he respected me being just a kid trying to finish high school. The higher up, let's call him Greg, fake name, would come by once a week to check in, but not in a bad way. Greg actually helped me out, so a month after meeting him, I didn't need to sell anymore. He helped with bills and groceries, etc. When I asked him why, he told me he knew my dad in jail. The following story is what I remember from what he told me. The prison confirmed this story when I asked, after I turned 18. Greg had been in prison for 3 years when my dad arrived at the prison. Greg and my dad turned out to be cellmates. Greg explained to me that my dad never seemed right, and over a year he managed to gain his trust. My dad revealed to him that he wasn't caught for assaulting multiple people in his charge, but didn't actually tell him what he did. Greg, being in a semi-powerful gang, used his connections to find out exactly what my dad did. Greg didn't want to ruin getting out, so all he did was tell the more respected prisoners, of which will never see freedom again, and do not have morals. My father was raped, beaten, burned, stabbed and beaten again for months before he died. And all I can say is I wish it lasted longer. Greg put the pieces together and looked out for me for 2 years when I had no one. Greg got the justice that me and my siblings really deserved. Maybe not nuclear, but when I think about the months of torture he endured, I feel those prisoners got better revenge than I could ever have gotten. I am great now. Greg is kind of like an old crazy uncle now. He got shot in the arm and gave up the gang life. I think I got everything, but if anyone has questions, go ahead and ask. A satisfying way to get revenge on an old white man telling me I'm anti-feminist. I don't want to get into a whole debate about my politics, but I'll just say I'm a member of a political party in the UK that allows their members to submit policy ideas. I also own my own business selling scrunchies. It's important, I promise. A bit of backstory: I, 20F, suffer really bad mental health brought on by my birth control. I didn't know it was my birth control till I did some research. I found it crazy that my doctor never told me and instead put me in therapy, rather than trying to change the cause of the problem. So I wrote a policy where doctors would check in on the mental health of women on birth control whenever they came in to get more, mainly focusing on the pill. I got a lot of support, except from this one guy, M60, I'll call him Mark. He's super sexist, sleazy and hates me for some reason. Likes everything to stay the same as it was when he was younger. I submitted the policy and then received an email from Mark with the entire policy committee, which I am a part of, CC'd in. He rewrote my policy, picking out every tiny mistake in red text, like some kind of teacher. He then told me that I was setting feminism back to the days of Marie Stopes, a woman who worked on contraception access over 100 years ago. It was a patronizing email, clearly designed to belittle and embarrass me when all I wanted to do was to help women not go through what I did. So I responded, telling him I was so sorry for setting feminism back, and to make up for it I had named a scrunchie after him, of which I would donate profits to the charity named after Marie Stopes herself. I'm pretty proud of it, it's doing quite well in the shop too. Apparently, a lot of people hate Mark and have bought one just to get back at him. He's pretty livid. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.